I'm late. Like the white rabbit. I'm late. Sorry, guys. If anyone even is still around, listening or watching. There we go. The chat's on. Yay. Alright, so real quick, let's go over this fair use disclaimer. All information shared will fall under the Fair Use Act of 1976, Section 107, for the purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and or research, which this falls under several of those headers, so we're good there. This is a topic that is you must have a lot of tact when you're discussing these topics, and a certain level of sensitivity is required. When I was in healthcare, we would have constant or consistent, what were called up trainings for dealing with Alzheimer or dementia patients. And it was literally called sensitivity training so that they could harness our empathy or our compassion and show us how to utilize that in such care, how to have a higher level of sensitivity than you would have, as a regular citizen of the public, going about your day. This topic is difficult for me because of my personal history and things that I know that have went on in my life. And people will say, well, how do you know? Maybe you're just paranoid. Maybe you're just schizophrenic. My background is such that I have worked since I was 16. My mother had her own business, 2 of them. I was always in college courses. I did get my GED. I had a few friends pass away that were very close to me. Yada, yada, yada. I became a mother. I have a background in healthcare, banking, and food and retail. So, and I have an associate's degree in business with a concentration in healthcare, and I took basic psychology courses. I'm a layman. Much of this is theory, theorizing and speculation about other situations. I am making these speculations out of an educated opinion. An educated opinion is one based where there are facts to support the opinion that you may or may not have, though that isn't always the answer, right? Sometimes 2 things are true and not just one thing. And the problem with these topics today is like we've micromanaged ourselves into such a corner regarding mental wellness and well-being, and even with our daily laws that we've backed ourselves into a corner with our language, with our treatment protocols, with our policy and procedure. We've gotten too micromanaged. We've concentrated not on the individual enough, and understanding that the individual, spreads outward to their family and their community, and a well cared for individual will then help to create a well-balanced family unit, and that spreads to a well-balanced community, and so on and so forth. So, having said all of that, our mental illness is real and a real thing. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. Again, this is speculation from my own experience and from educating and researching myself. You have to research for yourself, decide what you believe. I just want to present you with a few facts, with a few things that are true, because I think sometimes we need to go back to understand how we got to where we are today. And so I want to show you one of the first modern cases of a targeted individual. I cannot tell you about this person personally. I cannot say if they have a mental illness. People have speculated that is the reason for this. People have speculated that every person that calls themselves a targeted individual is schizophrenic. And I will also tell you that more often than not, a lot of us have very similar backgrounds in either healthcare. Oh yes, and I worked for a cell phone company for a number of years as well, and did sign an NDA at one point. And all I did was telecommunications supervisor. So that tells you again how micromanaged things are. The right hand doesn't often know what the left hand is doing. So let me show you something. For anyone that's not aware, and I had no idea that these things existed. I knew they were out there. So you can basically, because of the society that we're in today, we oftentimes forget that there are cameras everywhere. They're all over the place and they're watching us. But who's behind the other eye of that camera? Well, I guess you can get into these at your leisure. If you have time, if you have the inclination, you can just start tapping into these cameras. No, hang on, because that's not, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so this shows you some of the software. So basically, you can tap into public parks. You can go into traffic cameras. What is an open source camera? And there it gives you an example of one. Can I view live CCTV cameras live in the local area networks, LAN, which is typically within your home area with all types of IP cameras. So again, people can do these types of things at any time. I've shown you these before, but for example, like here are some, and they're live all the time. Like they're constantly streaming or updating or live updates. So this is EarthCam and this is Niagara Falls right now, right? But that's not the only thing you can look at. You can look at, there's a Falcon Cam. You can watch a falcon all day, right? There's Wildwood, New Jersey. I went there as a kid, loved it. There's EarthCam TV in New York. There's one in Florida, I know, in St. Lucia when I went there. And again, that's where all my problems began. But I have noticed, and again, take this for what it's worth, you know, do what you want with it. I know that when I talk to people in my own life, people aren't really good liars, like, all the time. When they have to lie all the time, they have to act all the time. This is why people with double lives and whatnot, they often get caught up in what they're doing because they can't keep up with their own lies. And another thing people aren't very good at all the time is acting. And I can tell just by certain things that people have said to me, by the way strangers have reacted to me. Like for example, I met a girl when I was selling makeup on Facebook before things went really bizarre. And she came over to my house, and it was when I was still drinking beer. I think we were going to have a couple of beers, and I was cutting the package of the 6-pack. You know how you cut the rings? And I was saying, yeah, I don't want it to get in the ocean and get around a turtle. And she shook her head, and mind you, I never met her before. And I said, what? She said, oh, nothing, just the little things you do. Now, this is a girl I had never met. And a woman who had become a quote-unquote friend, which now I find out I really didn't have many of, but a woman who had become a friend, wanted to do some, like, boudoir shots of me. She's like, I know you're into the makeup now, but I really want to see if I can do this for anniversaries and, you know, this, that, and the other. Would you mind doing a shoot for me? And I was like, sure, you know, whatever. And another one of my friends came over to do my makeup, and she's like, I hope you don't mind me watching. I'm just such a fangirl. And I'm like, a fangirl of who? Like I didn't understand where she was coming from. Now I'm building up to something here. Again, this is not per se about me or my situation. This is to show you guys that these things are out there. They can be done. And I have a really... what's the word I'm looking for? I have a theory that might be a little on the fringe side, but I have a theory that most of us people who are TIs, the ones who aren't legitimate mental illnesses, and we can touch on that later, but again, I'm just here to present a few scenarios for you. I have a feeling that some of us, because this technological era is so massive, and because the monopoly on it is so competitive, high tech is a dog eat dog world, you know. I mean, it's probably worse. I mean, I'm sure it is worse than Wall Street. So these companies are very competitive, and they have to have trials, or they at least have to have the documentation that there were trials done for certain technologies. And who better to trial on either than someone's child, which you're seeing it roll out now, the newest version of whatever's going on in the medical industry. And again, there's good and bad to everything. I'm not going to say, because I like my doctor. I like that he actively listens to me. I like that he's on the more holistic end of things. But I know that's not the case for every doctor. I did not care for my counselor. I thought he was arrogant. I knew that he was putting ideas in my head that probably should not have been there at that time. I was going to him for help, and he made the situation worse. In my marriage and whatnot, as I was going through some life changes. And so, there is an upside and a downside to everything, right? And I've told people before, in my case, we have to understand in this world, there are consequences for all of our actions, good, bad, and neutral. Am I at a point in time in my life where I deserve everything that's happened to me? I don't believe so, and I don't believe you've deserved a lot of what's happened to you either. And I don't believe this girl that I'm about to show you deserved this either. I don't see how we can go on like this and doing things against people's consent or against their awareness and justifying that by claiming it's for some greater good. And I know in the end that's what's going to be said. They'll say, well, now there will never be another kidnapped child because we can track them. But how many lives did you ruin perfecting that science and technology? How many people's spirits and minds did you break? And that's another thing I want to touch on. What came first, the mental illness or the trigger that got that person to that point? Because that's a case of nature and nurture both as well. It's not just your genes, it is your environment. Now, I got out of a toxic environment and it followed me kind of throughout my life because I didn't know how to keep that door shut, even to family. But it's never okay to justify anything for the greater good and to say, well, we ruined thousands of lives to get here, but we may have saved millions, but you don't even know that. You don't even know if that's the case. So what am I going on about? Well, I just showed you how open source cameras can pretty much, and I'm not going to do that for you, that part of the footwork. You guys can Google open search cameras, LAN, and you should be able to tap into your own cameras that are near you in your area. Some are just of birds. We have an eagle's nest one, I think, in Pittsburgh, about an hour away where I was born. I think there's one that monitors an eagle's nest. There are some that are just traffic stops. But in South Korea, things are getting a little creepy and a little scary. Now, targeted individuals, again, I know from being in an abusive relationship, and I did my due diligence, I did my research. Oftentimes, the person, even though they did not begin with a mental illness, when they come out of that relationship or as they are getting to a point where they need, they haven't taken care of themselves, obviously, when you're in an unequal exchange of power like that, somebody is suffering. And so if you get to the point where you've neglected, and I don't even want to say neglected, you're abused to the point where you present like you have bipolar disorder because you're trying to do everything you can to please that person, but there's no pleasing them. So you run hot and cold trying to please that person. I know all too well about this. I had a parent like this, and I have a loved one very close to me right now like this. And they take no accountability. They take no accountability, and it's downright frightening to go to Reddit and to see what the millennials and younger are saying, my children's generations, what they're saying about mental illness. And it's shocking to look back and say, I blew off some of the residents that I took care of thinking, man, they're just paranoid. They don't know what they're talking about. But they were trying to reach out to me for help. Like, hey, I don't want this done. I don't want to take this medicine. I don't want to do this, that, or the other. And they didn't have any say because once you, and this is really big in this era, and this is why I wanted to touch on this topic again. Once you sign over your power of attorney, once you give someone else consent over your name, and I know that was the plan with me. Okay, I started off with a healthcare injury from lifting and rolling people. And my lawyer suggested, hey, go see a counselor. It doesn't have to be a psychiatrist. Just go see one. They can verify, that this isolates you and takes you out of, your daily, routine and habits that you like to do and whatnot. And so I don't think people understand how that stuff all coincides. Once you have, much like a school history and a school file, right? Once you have a school file, that can follow you to any school that you attend after that. Once you have utilities on in your name, that can follow you to any other state then, or any other gas or electric utility company after that. Once you are in the medical system and your medical file says maybe non-compliant, I remember there was a PT, a therapist that I really did not like. I was like, you hurt my neck every time you touch me. It's causing me pain. I can't allow you to do this to me because it's hurting me. And they wrote down that I was non-compliant. I never had been non-compliant for anyone else. But you see how these little things start to add up. So not only was I maybe non-compliant on certain jobs because I wouldn't sign off on residents that I hadn't seen that day when they wanted me taking a bigger caseload than the hours I worked would quantify. Like I would have gotten in trouble for fraud. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't commit fraud. That's another little check mark, right? Then I was interviewed for a personal banker and I told them, that I was an honest person and that, I was kind of a stickler for rules about cell phones being near computers and this, that, and the other. I thought they'd like to hear that. They did not like hearing that. So there's another check against my name. I'm trying to show you now how the healthcare system, the school system, the religious system, they are all tentacles of the same monster. It is the Kraken, and they are all arms of that same octopus, okay? What frustrates me to no end, and I have no desire to harm myself nor anyone else, I use colorful language, that's who I am. What frustrates me to no end is that people troll purposely to get paid for calling people like me and others mentally ill, deranged, schizophrenic, paranoid. It's not paranoia if it's really happening. And people don't believe you until it's them. And until it's them, honestly, they don't care. They'll virtue signal like they care. But most people today actually do not have compassion. And it breaks my heart to say that. I love people. And I know people are probably like, yeah, right. No, I do. I love people. There's a reason I'm keeping myself away from people at this point because I don't quit. I don't give up. I'm not going to. And that's the sad thing is there are people in this program who are not as educated as myself. Maybe they're just a vet, right? Maybe they didn't pass the 10th or 11th grade and got their GED. Maybe they're not as well spoken, don't know as many words as me. Does that mean they're less than me? Absolutely not. That's why I do what I do, is because I can put words behind it. I have some education behind it. I have some experience behind it. And I can be another voice speaking in a well-mannered, reasonable way, not at all in a psychotic or deranged or paranoid way, but in presenting facts to the public. And saying, now, do we deserve to be stigmatized like this? Or is it about time we started looking at the people causing all of us this pain and suffering? Because basically all we are is lab rats. Our hope, and I don't, again, they'll say, oh, well, you're religious. So that right there means you're a weak-minded person. If you've never read the Catholic Catechism, you really don't understand how deep the documentation and the history goes with that. Faith requires that you have some way to reason, right? Because faith fills the gaps. You don't always have proof for what you have faith in. So that fills the gaps of the disprovable, at least thus far for us. Who is Chip Chan? Okay, so I'm going to give you, and this is heartbreaking for me. It's very triggering for me. So I'm gonna show you a few blurbs on her, and then I'm going to show you the Vera chip. Who is Chip Chan? She's a South Korean woman who lives her life out in front of 3 webcams and claims she is controlled by police, captivates viewers around the world. This was written in 2013. Chip Chan began streaming in 2008 from most internet source accounts, okay? So by the time this article or this blog was written, She was already uploading or streaming for 5 years at this point. First thing, myself, most of you, we don't speak South Korean. If any of you do speak South Korean, or you understand, you can read South Korean, you might be of some help in this case. Because the first thing we have to do here is, are we going to take a leap and trust that everybody else is telling us the truth? I don't speak South Korean, so I'm going to throw that out right now. Is she, my question at this point is she willingly streaming her life? Is it willing and consensual? Or does she know it's happening, like some of us, and we just have no control over it? They've triangulated us in such a way. Because again, all of these branches, the social workers, right? When somebody goes to jail, if you have surgery, again, if you're non-compliant, if you have an injury, all of these different systems create a file for you. And this file will follow you everywhere. But how's the best way? Well, which came first, the chicken or the egg? What if they took all of the information, not just your medical records, but your schooling records, your employment history, maybe every time you didn't park where you should be parking, maybe every time you got a parking ticket. Heck, maybe every time you drank one beer too many at the bar. Well, I know, maybe your whole social credit, too, could go in this little computerized chip. Doesn't seem so crazy or schizophrenic once you know that the science behind it has been around for a very long time. Very long time. How long have we been tagging our dogs, our pets? I know when I rehomed my first dog, I had no idea and again, I've been very sheltered my whole life, and I don't mind saying that because at this point, I think it was a good thing for me. When I rehomed my first dog, they're like, he has this chip, and here's his little tag, and I'm like, okay, he's got a chip, and they're like, oh yeah, in his ear. I'm like, he's got a chip in his ear? Kind of makes you wonder again about Van Gogh, the artist who cut off his own ear and sent it to his friend who had stolen his wife, who mysteriously was then shot in a room with those two who said that he was paranoid schizophrenic because he cut off his ear. How long do you suppose these things have been going on? And I know that might sound like a leap to some of you guys. I get it. So let's first throw out this South Korean. We don't speak South Korean. We don't know if this is true. Okay? Thousands watch activities of Korean woman dubbed chipped via the internet. She claims to be controlled by a policeman via a microchip in her ankle. Sound familiar, TIs? Chip only rarely leaves her house in Seoul, dressed in a disguise. And I can't remember, I did the video because on Quora, somebody had said something about, it was another city that starts with an S. What was it? No, it wasn't Bangkok, was it? I'll remember. Anyways. Viewer noticed she sometimes sleeps in a filing cabinet. Now, this is really weird. She also falls asleep for 12 hours at a time and leaves these cameras running. I know from being alive. Now, the second thing you have to understand is America is one of the most propagandized nations in the world. I know most people don't believe this, especially younger people. I've never left the country, and I know this to be true. I know that a lot of the things that we receive have been filtered and that they are not as they appear. And I've told you this before with the news. I've advised you, if you're just now trying to sharpen your discernment, watch the news. Turn it down. Look at the pictures they show you. Do the same thing with YouTube videos and see if you come to the same conclusion as some of these media personnel. Because all they are anymore is actors. All they do is read a script. There is no investigative journalism anymore. And what was left of investigative journalism was in the original truth community on YouTube. But that's been scrubbed. I mean, you can find some of the remnants on Rumble, and some of us make 2, 3, 10 channels, and we go here and there. But I mean, They have the technology. They're able to separate us and segregate us. I'm so close to like being done with technology altogether myself. Like I really don't even want it in my life at this point. So she would sleep, she would fall asleep and sleep for hours, and then she would get right back up and go like to work or whatever, okay? Um, Slumped under a heap of blankets in a room in total disarray, she appeared to most observers to be a corpse. But the lifeless character was not a dead person. She is, in fact, a recluse Korean woman who lives her entire life in front of 3 webcams 24 hours a day, or at least that is what people believe. Very little is known about the mysterious woman, whose day-to-day activities are followed by thousands of people around the world via the internet on a channel dubbed Chip Chan. But despite the lack of information, viewers have become hooked on webcams capturing every moment of her bizarre life. From hundreds of hours of footage, observers have managed to piece together weird aspects of her life. She only rarely leaves her house, thought to be in Seoul, and when she does, she is dressed in a disguise. She also appears to spend up to 20 hours a day asleep, sometimes in a filing cabinet. Okay, so this is where it gets weird. I have a whole other like fringe theory about this woman herself. Why is it not showing the images? Is it because I went, okay. Yeah, this is her room. I don't know if you could see that. It's quite the mess. Okay. And that's like, as a woman, I would, especially, Asian women are very, the culture is very honor-based, right? And honorable. And they're very, work ethic oriented, right? So they work very long hours. Most of us have heard the horror stories about iPhones and whatnot. That's why I have never wanted to own one. But yeah, excuse me. They work a lot. So it had me wondering, like, is this just an office where she's made to work on the computer for hours and hours and hours at a time? She has water in there. It looks like she's in a stock room. Okay. So there she is in this disguise. They think she's been over there in that corner. You see her. And I don't know if they think she went into that closet to sleep. Did she go there to sleep? Is that how she gets out? Who knows? I don't know. Oh, she's heading out. Okay. All right. So internet users have managed to track down a blog according to Kernel Magazine, which apparently originating from the same place as the webcams. The blog casts more light on the inner workings of the woman's mind. In it, she claims a microchip has been implanted in her ankle, which is controlled by a corrupt policeman called P to control her actions. She claims this malign character P is stalking her and turns the cameras off. He enters her apartment. Most of the information gleaned about the woman has come from the incoherent, rambling messages she scrawls in a strange script on boards for viewers to read. The strange character was captured on webcam leaving her apartment dressed in a disguise. That's weird. She looks like like a hazmat suit, right? And then there's like her bedroll, I guess. She does appear to drink water. Where's the bathroom? Like, is this woman? Okay, now I'm leading somewhere with this. After a painstaking search, someone was able to decipher the words, which read, "Don't get tricked, don't get fooled. Early every morning. If someone comes that paralyzes the person, I can't be stopped." Okay. Hopefully that's something lost in translation there. Don't get tricked, don't get fooled. Get up early every morning. If someone comes that paralyzes the person, I can't be. Okay, another sign read, "The stalker used this skill from 2006. I have slept for 20 hours every day since then. I do not know what have happened while I sleep. I have always been afraid of sleeping." Now, swaths of the internet have been given over to people's theories about who the woman is and what she is up to. It is understood local police are aware of her and claim she is mentally ill. Don't ever forget what Dave Chappelle said in that interview years ago. He says, the easiest way to dismiss a person's claims is to dismiss them, their character first, right? That person's crazy. You can't believe anything they say. They're just crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. Now, this is where I get disturbed, and I already read through these once. This is from a year ago, okay? People are still talking about her. It's been going on since about 2008 or 2009. Now, here they're all speculating about her mental health. I truly, truly, truly dislike Reddit. It's making me really dislike young people, and this whole experience has made me not trust anybody. Does that mean I'm schizophrenic, though? No. I mean, again, would you tell the person who was, abused and beat, hey, you've got a mental problem for not trusting that person who abused you and beat you? No, you don't tell them that. Like, this is all basic human decency and common sense, okay? But the problem is all these people are saying, no, don't do anything, don't interfere. You could just make a situation like that worse. Yeah, if she was actually getting bludgeoned, you could make it worse. The problem is that by leaving people like this, like myself, like you, like a lot of us, secluded and isolated without any resources, you make the whole argument weak for that side of things, right? And most people want to go along to get along. I get that. Most people nowadays, they want to go along to get along. They don't want to do anything to rock the boat. But eventually, trouble's going to come your way in this life, whether you rock the boat or not. I would rather stand up for things that were worth standing up for. But we really got to, we got to find some balance here. We're either claiming everybody is mentally ill or, which I'm not. Listen, I think something's in the water and the meat at this point. I've even looked up mad cow disease just to see why, if some of this can be explained by our food, something, a toxin being in our food supply. Because people have seemed to have things that have been known for years, basic science, basic biology, basic chemistry. And the pointing the finger, I'm a fascist, so I'm going to call you a fascist. I'm not really, I'm using that as an example. Like, can we just get past the label, say, I'm a human being, you're a human being. What can we do to make this a better experience for all of us? But I don't know anymore. It's like people are too far gone. They will sell out for money. They will sell out their friends, their family. I mean, I had somebody who wanted revenge. Like, seriously wanted revenge, thinks I ruined their life. I kind of see it the other way around. But, we got to meet in the middle somewhere sooner or later. So I choose to be the peacemaker, right? But these things have to come out. You can't just, this has been going on for years and years now, just pointing the finger at people, calling them crazy. All right, so a few things I want you guys to know. This is what she blames it on. So this is the original Barrett chip. It is the injectable identification chip that can be inserted under the skin of a human being to provide biometric verification. In the last live stream, I don't even know if I made it public yet. In the last live stream, I showed you a thing about an experimental city in Saudi Arabia. And I even said, look, they have their own little map on here. And they have their own little health, wellness, and biometrics. Like, they had the technology combined with the health and wellness category. That's telling. People like Nicholson 1968 and RFB, they've been talking about this transpocalypse since I don't know when. And everybody has been expecting, like, Transformers, like these, turning us into part of the industry. But I think what we're seeing taking place now in our world is unprecedented. I mean, just the amount of people that are trying to exploit other people's bodies, like, this should frighten everybody. This should frighten everybody. Why are companies so eager to pierce our skin? And I went over this when I was showing you how many church people were advocating for tattoos. They know that those people probably aren't going to get a chip, right? So how can we pierce their skin? Well, let's tell them to get a tattoo for Christ. What? And I fell for that, like, early on in that. Like, I partook. This is why I do what I do, is to tell people, like, no, they're doing things they're not supposed to be doing. And I think the only reason, again, we heard about Chip Chan's story way back in 2008, because it's another case of passive consent. Hey, we made the information available to you. We put it out there. We showed you we were spying on people. Now look at this. And look at the year this started. I found this when I was looking up the Chip Chan to see if it was still up. In South Korea, micro cameras installed in public bathrooms. Huh. And that's needed. Why? That's necessary. Why? And they're so eager to get into bathrooms too. Like, what is going on? Everywhere that a person has any type of privacy, their own body, their own temple, under their own skin, their own bedroom, their own eyes, as far as that goes, their own home. Yeah, maybe people should be a little more decent. Maybe people shouldn't keep secrets. But that's apples to oranges. That doesn't make this any better. That's no excuse to justify doing things like this and spying on people in their most private moments. It was humiliating having a child. To think of like a camera in the bathroom where I take care of my female, needs. Do you know how like that's just not even... Warning for women traveling to South Korea, beware of hidden cameras. Confronting South Korea's spy cam problem. We are not safe. A new documentary investigates South Korea's spy cam epidemic that largely target women. Hotels, changing rooms. There is a very nefarious agenda right now at this point, and I know you're probably sick of hearing it. I'm not a feminist. I'm really not. I'm a human being. But I know that life comes from the woman, and right now, I mean, if you can't see that this is spiritual and that they are coming after life in all of its forms. Okay, so I showed you Chip Chan, probably the first modern-day targeted individual. I've shown you Typhoid Mary, who was probably a targeted individual, a nonconformist of her day during the last plague. Now I've showed you how open source cameras are easy for pretty much the layman, anyone. Let's say my husband knew I was going down to Florida and knew what time I'd be at a certain beach. He could pull up that camera and watch me wave to him. Again, that was them showing me that, hey, we're watching you. And I still didn't get the message. I didn't get it. I was like, I don't know. I was not consciously aware. And that's the sad thing. I was an NPC. That's why I can't ever look down at another human being, because I think it's my job to reach a hand down to them, because I've been kicked and stepped on and all those things, and it doesn't make me any better or worse than you. I just can't do that to my worst enemy. And I would advise you all, my story, my testimony is a cautionary tale. Please hear me. You can't forget for a second that you're being watched. Like, you literally can't. And it's better for your ethics and morals and values that way anyway, that you don't forget. Just like God's angels and demons. Right? You're always being watched. Try to always have some type of modesty and protect the private foundation of your family unit, whatever that looks like. Because this is all wicked. If you can't see how this is all tying together, how I'm trying to weave a tale here for you to... I can't tell you outright what to think or what conclusions to come to. But I'm giving you all of the pieces. How you put it up together is up to you, obviously. Oh, shoot. And there was one more thing. Spy cam, what was it? Oh, fiddle-dee-dee. And this is from May 15th, 2023. Oh, wow. That was like not too long ago. More than 30,000 cases of filming with the use of hidden cameras were reported to police in South Korea between 2013 and 2018, according to media reports in Time magazine. I mean, I feel like the U.S. is almost worse than this at this point.
Can you put a hidden camera in? It is illegal to record anyone without their consent in places where there is an expectation of privacy. And I think that's what that guy was trying to tell me is, oh, you don't even own that house. I don't care if I own this house or not. I pay to live here. I expect privacy in my bedroom and bathroom. It's an, what does it says right there? Where there is an expectation of privacy. Yes, I have the expectation of privacy. And again, I know I cover a broad base of things, but I try to cover these things in small doses for people who are working a lot, who maybe don't have their eyes on every, paradigm, what's going on here and what's going on there, because it's a lot to keep up with. But right now, they're laying the foundation for all of these things. Now, I wanted to show you, this will probably be the next video. Hold on. Hold, please. In July 2010, Positive ID announced that it would finally discontinue marketing the Verichip implant microchip due to poor public acceptance. Imagine that. Yeah, but see, a lot of the times these company names are just a front, and they'll, or an LLC, and you can have the same product and just change the name, change the branding, try to deliver it to the public, because they will get us to consume it one way or another. They don't care. But they will either have our passive consent or they will have our knowing and willing consent. Let me state it right here loud and proud yet again. I do not consent. Never did consent to any such thing. Never. Never. I don't care what you think you told me, how you told me, in what order you told me. It was some type of game, and it was not how I understand the English language. But you can tell just by how people around you behave and the things that they say, and how everything that I do during the day, that night or a day later is brought up in conversation just to say, hey, we're watching you. My mom was Italian. She had a business. Her business was in between two other Italian businesses. I grew up around a bunch of Italian businessmen. Take that for what you will. I'm not a stupid, street stupid person. But I'll be darned if somebody's going to say, well, we told you and you didn't do anything to protest. Obviously, I didn't understand. Because they think they present it to you. Oh, well, I told her this part and I told her this part and I took her to that camera in Florida and told her to wave to you guys. Okay, I'm supposed to believe then that the rest of my life from that point on is public for public consumption. Do you see? I'm trying to show you now how they work, how they orchestrate these things. They have pushed this back out, right? And we all know what it is. It's, what is his name? Okay, so then this tells you it's basic, and it's not science fiction. It's a circuit device with a radio frequency in it. And what can radio frequencies do to the human body? They can either heal it or make it sick, make it ill. People talking about these rashes that they're getting, and that's Chip Chan goes into like a real nasty health scare with rashes and whatnot. But like I said, I have another theory about what's going on with that person, and I don't want to. If you guys want to talk about just her case, we can do that in another video. This is just for me to get information out there and ask you guys, what do you think? What are your choices going to be? Have you already discussed this with your own conscience? And do you know how you feel about it? Oh my gosh. Would you consider being chipped? The chips are about the size of a grain of rice. They can be removed, but are not FDA approved. The cost ranges from $150 to $200. So if like my mother wanted to do this to me, or those spots that keep showing up on my neck, if a jealous spouse thought that they could do this to me just to keep me in line, right, to always know what I was doing or where I was. Malarkey. Wow. They're not difficult to take out. See, the problem is, though, with any surgery is scar tissue. You could have scar tissue wrap around that thing, and you're not getting it out. excuse me. I was shot in the hand with a BB gun. Totally my own fault when I was a child. And it's still in there. They never took it out. It never fell out. And they said, well, it's in there now. We might as well just leave it in there because, the tendons in my hand started to grow over it. But now I'll always have some bit of brass that's inside of my body. So, there's consequences to everything, which makes removal. Animal chips are coated with Biobond or Paraline, but human chips are not, which makes removal easier. A doctor can put a glove on, make a small incision, and press the chip up from the skin to get it right out. Huh. How bizarre. Does a microchip have a tracker? Pet microchips do not have GPS. Then why would you bother having it? They use RFID technology that is able to be scanned for information like the pet owner's contact information. This means the microchips can't give your pet's location if they get lost, but can lead to their safe return when found. And see, that's what the selling point to parents is going to be, your child can never be abducted. Your child will never be among the missing 411 because they have this little chip. I mean, they will get people to accept this. A smartphone cannot and will not ever be able to read a pet's microchip. Wow, that's unnecessarily aggressive sounding. Science rarely ever says never. I wonder why that is. Huh. Can a phone scan a microchip? Make sure your phone has a scanning app. There are many free apps available for both Android and Apple devices. One such app is called Microchip Scanner. When did the FDA approve the VeriChip? Oh my God. 2004, October 13th. Isn't that interesting? Look at that day. That's a pagan holiday, a cult day. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved the VeriChip, a computer chip implanted subcutaneously to facilitate medical record access. Yeah, I'm sure that's all it is. If you've never watched Seinfeld, if anyone's young that decides to watch this video, if you've never watched Seinfeld, there's a video there where Elaine goes with Uncle Leo to the doctor. And she goes because she wants to get something out of her file. She knows that they wrote something in there bad about her because the next time she went to the doctor, she was treated differently when she went to this doctor that she was referred to. And I'm telling you, you can tell when things like this are going on. It's not paranoia. I mean, I don't have hallucinations. I don't see things that aren't there. I don't see things that interact, everything that I have seen that's been a little odd has interacted with the environment. I just think it's very sad that whenever someone talks, even today, like we try to say how advanced we are now, but when someone speaks on something that is different than us, that is different and outside of our personal framework, we automatically dismiss them as having some type of mental delusion. Instead of actively listening and saying, okay, this person is obviously in some distress. They need me to, especially when it's a spouse or a loved one or a child. When they come to you and they believe that something is happening, even if you don't believe it, as someone that loves them, you should want them to be able to get to the bottom of it. That's how I've known all along who went along with this. Someone that loves you wants your well-being looked after, regardless of what that, looks like. And sometimes it can look a little different. Sometimes it does require medical intervention. Again, I'm not a doctor. This isn't medical advice. I'm saying we have a lot of people in our society who are suffering silently. It would do us better to listen to them. It reminds me of people who litter in their own yard. Why are you going to litter in your own yard and mess up your own environment? Why are you going to let people around you be sick or suffering or in need? Help them. This is an us problem. This is not a you problem, a me problem, a his or her problem. This is an all of us, we, us problem. Doesn't matter what color we are. Doesn't matter what type of plumbing we have. What matters is we have hearts, souls, and spirits. And our society is not going to continue if this keeps going on. All right, so now you see how that's going. Let me show you one more thing. And I'll probably make a short of this. Uh, oh, geez, come on. I just doxed myself. Women's income is used as wombs. I don't know what button I pushed that it does that. Okay, so this is recent. But again, this shows you the attack on life, on organic, natural nature, the nature of life, life itself, but especially upon the female, which brings life into this realm. Why do you think they're indoctrinating all these young men to be effeminate? They're trying to encourage this to discourage having babies, to discourage having families. They don't want us continuing the human race, whoever they is, I don't even know. But that's the spiritual inclination that I'm saying. They don't want babies. They don't want families. They want people to get used to the idea of cohabitating with the same gender, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's the rainbow hijackers. That's what they're putting forth now, that you better like it because it's, you don't have the power to not consent anymore. They're saying why women should date trans women. And none of this makes any sense. If you were that way in the beginning and you were same-sex attracted, then why would you then want to go be with... Do you see what I mean? Do you see how confusing this gets for people? And these poor young people have no idea that once they do this to their body, they're not going to fit anywhere. They're just not. The LG and B of LGBTQ+, they want to break off into their own little thing because they don't like what's happening either. They said, we lived our lives, we kept it in our bedroom, it was between us. Woman, woman, man, man, whatever that looked like for them. But they don't want to be known as this other part. The whole agenda here is to get us to not have children, to get procreation to stop. And the best way to do that is to have men and women stop doing that together, right? But you have to have something to fill that gap, to fill that human need for companionship, because we all have it. We're built that way. We're made that way. But here you got into man thinking he can make this look even better than the creator. So this is another idea. An idea put forward, and I mean, you better be watching your women. That old meme that was out, what, they're coming for your women, or hide your, what was it? Hide your mama, hide your wife. That's no joke anymore. That's legit. An idea put forward by a professor to help those struggling with fertility issues. And remember, sons of the Nephilim, the forbidden children, have issues with this to begin with. Professor Anna, that doesn't even sound real, Annis Major suggested that brain-dead women could have their bodies used to house surrogate pregnancies for those unable or unwilling to carry a baby of their own. People really don't want to talk today? Nobody said hello. That kind of stings for me. But hi, guys. The chat was on. If it was turned off, it was not by me. Okay. So yeah, this is what they want to do now. My question is this. Brain dead women, how does that come about? Are there just that many brain dead women around now? Like they mean women in comas, right? Because that could also, I mean, I'm just saying, I had an ex that used to call me brain dead on the regular. So what do they really, again, this is what I've been trying to tell you all along with this channel. Read between the lines, read what is not being said there, okay? Brain dead women could have their bodies used to house surrogate pregnancies for those unable or unwilling to carry a baby of their own. Yeah, you see how nasty this could look if we get back into a serf style, slavery style, and I'm talking Babylonian slavery. The stuff that we're talking about in America, most people, even, I don't even want to get into the whole race thing right now because I think we're one race anyway, and that's humanity, mankind. But indentured servitude is not the same thing as slavery. They're two completely different things. an indentured servitude, you actually come out as a property owner and free. Like you're free and clear, you have no debt, and that you, on top of that, you own the property that you've been farming, for example. And that's how a lot of people of color came to affluence, was by working off the land that they were wanting to buy. Again, people don't know this. They want us stupid. They want our children very, very stupid. And I was part of it. I allowed it to go on. I was selling makeup online, trying to help the family like that, and trying to have, I have to have a social life. My doctor told me I had to have some type of social life. Well, if all I can have is online, well, that's what I was doing. And I was doing my own physical therapy. Didn't want my kids to have cell phones. It doesn't matter. We have to do better. We have to try harder. Obviously, I didn't try hard enough to keep those cell phones out of my children's hands. And I know people are saying, well, you're on social media right now. You're on a device. Yes, I am right now. Are any of us going to get to the point where we're so sick of this that we just do walk off and gather someplace ourselves? And I mean, I'm vagabonding. Living like a vagabond is looking a lot more feasible these days. So this is really weird, and I don't even know. It certainly sparked a wider conversation on the ethics around surrogacy and organ donation. And I removed myself from the organ donor list. How easy would it be for them to get rid of somebody that they, you know what I mean? We've seen this happen, guys. Somebody who can pay for a new heart in a movie, let's say. Somebody who can pay for a new heart. And hey, that person over there, they're poor, but they're in perfect health, and I want that heart. Why don't we arrange for a car accident for that person? Do you see what and I know people don't want to think this way, because I never wanted to think this way either. But do you see where all of this is leading? Do you see the new debate on this? About what's gone viral. The conversation, the model shared final moments with her grandma before euthanasia. You know what she asked her? She asked her if she was excited. Can you say total lack of compassion and empathy and sensitivity? Asked her grandma if she was excited to undergo euthanasia. And I'm not saying, and I don't think so. I mean, I watched my dad in great, great pain. I watched a lot of people in great pain. I'm not saying that, okay? But we each have a choice to make for our own self. And we should not push our choices onto anyone else, especially if you are the power of attorney for another individual, or you are a guardian over another individual. You should take that very seriously. It is not a time to get revenge against the mother who disciplined you or grounded you, or the father who, maybe, even if he was rough to you. It's not a time to be taking vengeance or revenge on somebody when they trust in you to be their guardian. I know that a lot of people are like, how did you go from one topic to the next? But all of these things need touched on. You need to see how all of these things are coming together. They want to own us lock, stock, and barrel. It's not enough to, now they have, they basically, their shares that they're buying online and stuff, and it is so competitive right now to make a living, okay? It is so competitive online. And then people are losing their scruples and morals and values. Inflation, you have all of these things happening at just the right time as to where there's going to be a lot of desperate people out there. Life is precious, especially now if we're losing the ability to procreate. And I don't want to say if it's science or man or God. I think it's a little bit of both, though. I think it's environmental. But you ever hear about how certain species will just go extinct because no more women will be born? They will all just be male, like the frogs that Alex Jones used to talk about. That's a real thing in science. That's a real thing. Do you think maybe it's possible then that the creator in his infinite wisdom has seen how things were going to go and has maybe put the brakes on the human race himself. Maybe we shouldn't be so quick to dispose of each other. Something else I wanted to look into too is two different realities, and I just want to mention this at the end here because maybe somebody else can look into this with me or comment about where you're at and what's going on in your area. I watch a lot of channels where people just drive around and they film because I want to see what's going on out there, and that's the best way I can do it right now, because I don't drive. I don't down those who do, but I don't, and I never have. I've driven. But it's just, I think people should carpool. I think that, we should do what we can. Anyways, there were two conflicting reports. Matt Fradd, the Pints with Aquinas guy, he is in Ohio. And you know how I've talked about how the devil is literally in Ohio, or somebody's really psyoping me. Either way, I don't know. I don't really care at this point. We got to live our lives in the same way. We still got to try to be righteous, decent human beings, decent individuals. Set some type of example for those coming after us and behind us, below us, however you want to look at that. But Matt Fradd was talking about how Steubenville was growing and how it was a good area for Catholics. And there was just somebody driving through Steubenville, and there wasn't even anyone else on the streets. And he was talking about the crime rates there and how everything was dead there. And there was a beautiful Catholic church there still in the area, St. Peter's, I think. But everything else around it was like boarded up and closed down. And I've said this for a while. It's like they are sending people like, oh, come here. This is where the Democrats all should be. This is where we should be. Oh, no, you got to come here. This is where all the godly people are going. We're all going to Texas and Florida because they're having these laws. It's, again, almost like the opposite is true. So be very careful, please, before you decide to go anywhere on a trip. Verify for your own self the safety of the area or what is going on in that area, because I'm seeing this a lot. I don't know if people are just straight up liars and they just need to have content, right? So that they can make their YouTube money, because that's their job, and I get it. But at the same time, our reality doesn't need to be any more confused than it already is. I mean, we got kids thinking that just because brands change their slogans, that means something supernatural happened. And that's why I haven't been doing a whole lot of videos, because I have something coming up regarding trauma and demonology. And I know you're gonna be like, that's weird, Jen. Why are you putting those two together? It is about consent, and it is about being the master of your own domain, meaning making sure you have no attachments from trauma, fear, things like that. So we are going to be getting into more of the spiritual elements, but honestly, I'm trying to stay away from some things, internet, because it's distressing. I have no desire to hurt myself or anyone else, and I never would, and that's where my problem comes in. Is I got a soft heart, and sometimes seeing and hearing all these things gets to be a little much, but I know that even if I could help just one person, I mean, it was worth, the time it takes me. So start looking into these things yourself. I don't know if I still have this that I wanted. No, because this is more current. Okay, so this is Obama's baby, and a lot of people aren't making this distinction on YouTube, I've noticed. Yeah, Pittsburgh's one too. I knew it. I knew Pittsburgh was going to be one. And I knew Washington. You can tell all these places that they pretty much have blocked off where you get all the bad news about. I'm sure Chicago's on here too. All these places that tell you all these rough things are going on in those neighborhoods. It's so they can set this stuff up. I'm pretty secure in that. I've done enough research into this. We're going to look into this a little more because he's doing something now. It's not from 2015. It's from like pretty recently. Okay, so there, Jackson among pilot cities for, there we go. Is that it? A pilot city for former President Obama's newly announced youth leadership initiative. So he's got his hands in a lot of cookie jars right now. Obama's $80 million reinvestment in smart city tech touches Kansas City. That's 2016. They want everybody online, chipped, all that stuff. I know they probably think it's going to be efficient. It's just like a medical procedure. They're going to tell you, if you've had a cavity filled, why wouldn't you go ahead and do this? And yes, I do wonder about the fillings that they've given people as well, which that's a whole other chip debacle to look into. Right to the south of me is the smart city. See, the smart cities aren't the same as the 15-minute cities, I don't think. There we go. Yeah, so. All right, well, let's see real quick. I don't like when these get too long anymore. What are they and how do they work? But are they viable? Oh. I just want to see which one, like, are listed now. Human-centered design. Munich. Fewer cars, more space for cyclists and pedestrians. Safe paths for children. Hey, I would actually like that myself. That's just me. Shanghai. Is that the one? Oh, I can't remember. All day-to-day activities are within 15 minutes walking distance. See, that's why I moved here. I liked this area because it's very similar to that. But I think privacy is something that people need. I don't know. There's got to be a reasonable compromise here somewhere. But I wanted to show you guys about how all this technology comes together and about not dismissing someone just because something that they claim or an experience they're having is out of your framework or understanding. We need to breach these gaps, and sometimes all somebody needs is someone else to actively listen to them. I'm not denying that medical illness or mental illness is not a problem. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm just saying the technology is out there to do these things. So why are we dismissing these people so easily? Why are we allowing, and I'm going to say it, I'm just going to come out and say it, these trolls are mental midgets. They're not very bright, the ones who are bossing us and bullying us all over the internet, but we take it because we're the peacemakers. We're the Christ followers. We try to be like Christ. But how about maybe we be like Christ and we take one for a friend? How about if I have your back, sometimes you have mine, and so on and so forth. That way we're all covered. And we all have our backs watched. And we're all serving each other in that same way as well. Might be oversimplistic, but it's just a thought. Get out there into nature a little bit today. Remember that the screen is not reality, and very often it will distort reality. I love you guys. Bye.